At first glance, this vacation in Rio de Janeiro seemed like the perfect way to get away from routine worries. The warm sun, the endless ocean, and the mesmerizing views of the beaches allowed Matthew and Victor to forget their everyday problems for a while and enjoy serene moments. But from the very beginning, a more complicated and strained relationship began to develop between these families, hidden from everyone. Matthew felt that a cold indifference had long settled into his marriage to Karen. They had been together for years, but it was as if they had both lost the bond that had once brought them together. Their conversations turned into a set of familiar, mundane phrases, and each day they lived became a copy of the previous one. Victor, on the contrary, though he felt tired in his marriage with Elizabeth, preferred to take family hardships more easily and ignore the difficulties. On the beach surrounded by carefree vacationers, Matthew suddenly notices Jennifer, Victor's daughter, a young and full of life girl. She has just crossed the threshold of adulthood and as if framed by a halo of youth, which in an instant attracts his gaze. Jennifer, naive but already feeling attractive, casts in genuinely interested glances. Matthew inwardly resists his budding feelings, knowing it's wrong, but his desire to connect with her outweighs his own moral convictions. Everything he sees in Jennifer reminds him that he long ago lost the passion, immediacy, and exhilarating unawareness unique to youth. Over time, their glances and casual conversations begin to turn into increasingly personal and lengthy conversations. In these conversations, Jennifer openly flirts, seeing Matthew as a man who treats her with respect and consideration, taking her seriously as an equal. For her, these moments become an opportunity to experience herself in communication with someone older and wiser, and for Matthew a chance to feel, at least for a moment, long-lost emotions and taste for life. He feels that their conversations bring him to a state similar to the elation he feels when they are alone. This intense flirting leads them to a secret affair that begins with an innocent touch, and anything that might hold Matthew back, he ignores. He spends a lot of time on Jennifer, giving himself over to their companionship, but every time he finds himself around her, he realizes he's crossing a line beyond which irreparable consequences could follow. He fights himself, but every time he decides to break their connection, he comes back. Jennifer sees their secret meetings as a story filled with romance and excitement without thinking of the devastating consequences. Their connection is kept secret, but gradually becomes visible to those around them. Victor, Jennifer's father, begins to notice changes in his daughter's behavior. She hides from him more often, avoids direct answers to questions and spends time, as it seems to him, in a world of her own. Once accidentally seeing Jennifer and Matthew exchanging understanding glances, he begins to suspect that something unusual is going on, but is not yet ready to admit his fears. Victor can't understand what could be driving his daughter to do something like this and initially writes off her behavior as a teenage crisis. Karen also senses that her husband has changed. He is becoming withdrawn and secretive, often brooding and acting more and more distant towards her. She notices how Matthew reacts to Jennifer's presence and her anxiety grows. Intuitively realizing that something is going on between them, Karen tries to talk to Matthew, but he refuses to share his thoughts and avoids the conversation, which only deepens the rift between them. Meanwhile, Jennifer feels torn between her father's expectations and the passionate feelings she feels around Matthew. But tensions begin to rise, and she can't hold it in any longer. Unable to contain her emotions, she makes an unexpected confession to her father and tells him about her affair with Matthew. Her words make Victor furious and completely confused. For him, it is like a stab in the back. He feels betrayed and deceived by a man whose best friend and closest person was not enough. He breaks into Matthew's house and demands an explanation, accusing him in open conversation and not holding back his emotions. Matthew confronts Victor and realizes the depth of his fall. Victor is not just his friend, he is the man who has always trusted him and shared life's joys and hardships with him. Their conversation turns into a tough clash, where each of them tries to express their feelings and, perhaps, to find an explanation for Matthew's behavior. But Victor cannot and does not want to forgive his friend, believing that he betrayed him and destroyed their long-lasting friendship. This quarrel becomes the final point, after which each of them goes his own way. Left alone, Matthew is forced to face his actions. He realizes that their relationship with Jennifer was nothing more than an illusion, a false attempt to regain lost emotions and breathe life into his empty soul. This fleeting infatuation has turned into a disaster for him, destroying not only his marriage to Karen, but also his friendship with Victor. He feels devastated, having lost everything that ever meant to him. Jennifer, though worried about what has happened, due to her youth and inexperience, forgets these events more quickly. She returns to her old life, her hobbies and concerns, but the experience she gained in this complicated affair leaves its mark on her. This lesson forces her to look at life differently, to realize that romance and passion can bring deep suffering and destruction. Matthew, left alone, realizes that not only has he destroyed his relationship and friendship, but he has lost himself in this deceptive and temporary feeling.